Hi, Keith Carmona here for Scattered Comics, and more specifically for my title Dr. Dream, which I created back in 2018 for Scattered Comics. This is a short series on the different characters that I came up with for the book, and just kind of understand the inspiration behind them, the whole reason why I created the book, and give some insights to the individual characters. So let's start off with the very first, obviously the main character, which is Dr. Dream himself. I was having some trouble dreaming. I'd never experienced this before. I thought to myself, well, if this were any other physical ailment or that kind of thing, I'd go see a doctor. If there was something wrong with my teeth, I'd go see a dentist. Who do you go to see if, your dreams are all messed up? There really wasn't anybody, out there or available. And so that's where I came up with the idea of Dr. Dream. Couple that with the fact that I wanted to create a story for my kids. My previous title, Blank, was, more mature book, not just graphically, but the idea of a dystopian society, right, was something that they weren't really old enough to understand. So this was 2018, so that would make my son 8 years old, and then my daughter was 5 at the time. And so I wanted something that that they could read, so that get a book in their hands and stuff, and so they could learn to enjoy comics like I did growing up. So I have this character, Dr. Dream. I need to, because there wasn't any dream therapists. There's still really not to this day. I had to, make him sort of an off-the-grid kind of character, if you will. Not character as in, comic-wise, but his practice had to be something that was not mainstream. What I did was, this kind of a therapy involved being able to touch another, human being who was having trouble, and to actually go into their mind and help them with their dreams. And so with the first issue, I had Dr. Dream show up with this young girl, Alice. And the opening scene is they're actually walking around in her mind because she's been traumatized by this dragon for a very long time now. And it's, affecting her life and her schoolwork and everything about her. I devised this comic. This was how it was going to start. It was going to be in her mind and that sort of thing. And so that's how not only we, get to see him in action, right? I mean, like right away, bam, we're in her mind. And, just right in the next page, right, we see the dragon that she's being chased by. And we're introduced to Nightmare. And so he manages to save her in that instance. And we're already introduced to his power and what he's able to do. He, of course, goes through and is able to help out Alice, which is how he gains sort of the notoriety and his nickname, Dr. Dream. His real name, of course, is Sora. And so he's been kind of working out of this office. So when I sort of described where he was living, it was in the city, but it was not in necessarily the best neighborhoods. The inspiration for that was kind of like the Tenderloin district in San Francisco, which has been problematic for the city for some time. And so obviously his ability is genuine, but again, he's not well accepted as a therapist by the medical board or anything like that. So he really doesn't have a traditional, Western license. He's got a doctor license, but that's for a general practice kind of thing. But he chooses to do this therapy thing as his main reason for helping people. And so we get to find out a lot about Dr. Dream once he gains some notoriety and things like that. And he's in the second issue, he's pursued by a doctor who wants to who believes his ability is sort of physically manifested in some way, which in a way it is, but it's not something that you can sort of capture just by studying. And he captures Dr. Dream in issue number 2. Issue number 2, we're also introduced to his loyal assistant Megan, which we'll talk about in another segment. We also have issue 2 also brings up a moment where he is sort of diverted a bit as the doctor is examining him, where he's sort of taken away to a different dimension. And this is something that I kind of worked in as I was writing the script for the Scatter Comics crossover. And I wanted Dr. Dream to be part of that, and I wasn't exactly sure how that was going to happen. And then I just thought, oh, well, in issue 2, he's been captured and taken to a hospital. This might not be a bad way to go ahead and have that confrontation is in that hospital. And so he's taken away to this other dimension by the Chaos Illusionist. So he learns about this different dimension from that episode. And so we're getting back to, kind of the original story I had in mind. As we get into issue number 3, where he helps out his client that we actually saw in issue 2 with Mr. Grossman. Issue 2 opens up with Mr. Grossman being helped by Dr. Dream, and so we come back to him in issue 3. And even though he's portrayed differently art-wise, my original artist Federico was working on other projects. He wasn't able to work on Dr. Dream anymore, and so we brought in Mark V, who changed Mr. Grossman from a middle-aged kind of balding white guy to more of a younger, say mid-30s kind of character. So he goes through a kind of a visual change there, which again is fine. As a creator, I believe once you write up a character or a script or a scene, you leave some room for your artists to sort of put their own designs on characters and that sort of thing. Just allow them the room to see them how they see them. And so I was okay with the difference there. I think a little bit of a sidebar here. I think writers, we have our part, but then we turn it over to artists to sort of work their own vision on how they see characters, situations, things like that. And we have to allow them to do that as a professional. But back to the story, we come back to Mr. Grossman, and he's still having, these sort of daytime visions and that kind of thing. And Dr. Dream has helped him as best he could. And this is a moment I think is key in understanding that we can do all the best we can for each other and things like that. And sometimes things do not turn out the way we want them to. And initially it was going to be, this issue was going to have Dr. Dream just outright fail. That, I don't know, I guess fail's a tough word, but just not able to succeed in helping him the way that he helped Alice. I saw this as an opportunity to also speak to one of society's greatest detriments, and that is the influence of extremist language and things like that. And, I kind of go back and forth on this. Obviously, the book ends the way it ends, but it also is a chance for us to say, you know what, sometimes you can do everything right and still not succeed. And I recall that from an episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, actually. And so Dr. Dream does learn that lesson there. Because he did everything he could. He did everything right. He showed up, tried to help his client as best he could, and still it doesn't quite end up the way that he wants to. And then moving on with issue 4, Alice is now a teenager. She is discovering that she has power. She is able to materially manifest her thoughts. If she's thinking of something, it becomes real, and this freaks her out, as it probably would a lot of us. But of course, being a teenager at this time, it's even more problematic. And the fact that basically everybody knows who she is or who she was when she was a young girl. The way that issue 1 ends off, with her and her parents, standing in front of the cameras and her growing up with this. And now there's this new thing, right? There's this power that she has that she doesn't know how to control what to do with or anything like that. And fortunately, she has Dr. Dream on standby for this very situation. So he has to come in and help her with this. And even he's not exactly sure what to do with this, but he definitely sees the power that she has within her. So that in many ways, this was really fun to write, because as a high school teacher, I'm seeing a lot of young kids with power who don't really know what to do with it and that kind of thing. And so I, as a teacher, we're the ones who are supposed to mentor the youth. And I'll talk more about Alice in particular on another episode. But suffice to say, this is a second situation where Dr. Dream finds himself. He's at a loss in his books and his research as to, how to help Alice, but he does know of the space, the null space that his mother introduced to him. He's like, okay, so since I can't totally explain this to her, maybe I could take her to a place where she has some control. So he does that. And of course, things again just kind of backfire a bit, because she's not able to filter out her everyday surroundings and find that quiet place. And I think that's a struggle that a lot of us have. And so that's her first engagement with it. But eventually our mentors do end up helping us, right? We have those mentors that help us with our own mental activity. We have just the same thing as those of us who go to the gym and have, trainers and conditioners and things like that. We have people that help us hopefully reach our goals. And in this case, Alice has Dr. Dream to help her navigate this space. All good things, of course, come to an end, and we do so with book number 5, which was always, I think going in, I think it was like issue 2 or 3 where I realized, how would this end? How would we end the series and that kind of thing? I knew it needed to end because there were some other projects I was working on, so there was that piece of it. But it was kind of growing a bit, right? I've had a number of sales at conventions for Dr. Dream. The campaigns have been successful and that sort of thing. But in my mind, it was always going to, wrap up after about a handful of issues. And that's pretty good, I think, actually, having a storyline last for, say, 5 books, 5 chapters, if you will. That's not bad. And my kids are grown too, and they were enjoying the series. And I did tell them I was going to wrap it up. In this last one, we kind of change our perspective now a bit. Dr. Dream is now older. He's been in his practice for a long time. As a matter of fact, he's ended his practice, we come to find out in this book. And he has been in home and hospice care for some time. Because this power has sort of taxed him, right, in this physical realm. And so he's been he's not completely debilitated, but at this point where we see him now is he's literally in a hospital bed. Alice is now grown up. She is now a lead singer for her band, Alice and the Wonder Band. She certainly made a career of herself. She hasn't really let on to anybody else that she has her power. But we definitely see that in the first few pages there, that, not only does she have a career, but she is still able to utilize her power and she has more control over her power thanks to Dr. Dream and through practicing and understanding the null space and things like that. Nightmare has grown and he has not let up on his desire to have Alice. The one thing about this last issue with Dr. Dream is, because this is the end of the story and in a sense also the end of Dr. Dream, I felt the need to sort of bring back all the other characters and Nightmares and Nemesis, as well as his assistant Megan, so that they all make a final appearance here as he sort of ends his that's the end of the story for him, and it ends up being the end of his life. In my mind, it's, all good things, right? Must come to an end, but hopefully the ending is satisfactory for the audience. It was sad, but also, it was, satisfying for me as well to be able to end this character the way that, and end the series the way that it did. And because it is for my kids, I want it in a way to let them know that, there'll be a time where I'm physically not here, but, I'm always with their heart. I'm always there in their memories. Even though we kind of end the series a bit ambiguous, I suppose, in a way, we do carry those that we love with us through our lives, through our memories, through our minds. I mean, in a way, that's kind of how we started this, right? This is how Dr. Dream was able to help people, is to really get into their minds and get in there and help them out. But this is also probably the strongest component that we have of love is that we remember those that we love. So I hope you enjoyed this series. And for all things Scattered Comics, go to www.scatteredcomics.com. If you're interested in my work and the various projects that I'm working on, not just on Dr. Dream, but on some of the other things that I do, feel free to check out www.keithcarmona.com.